Official. Warriors make the final call on Michael Porter Jr. Understand the impact. Urgent. It's official. The Golden State Warriors just dropped the hammer on Michael Porter Jr., and that changes the season now. If you breathe Warriors like me, get ready. In the next few lines, I'll tell you what was decided, why it happened, and what it means for the rotation, the payroll, and the role of Kuminga, Wiggins, and Clay. There is a hidden detail in this decision that almost no one noticed, and that could turn the key against the Lakers and Thunder. Stay with me until the end. You will understand who wins, who loses, and what changes in the next game. If this topic matters to you, leave a like now and subscribe to the channel. This really helps to bring this video to more Warriors fans. Activate the bell so you don't miss the next analyzes. And if we reach 5,000 likes, I'll bring you an extra video just with the rotation scenarios and impacts on the cap. Comment below, was this decision right or hasty? Let's continue because now I'm going to show you the hidden detail that could change the next game. Let me talk to you the way I like to do it on my channel. Eye to eye, without shortcuts, with the court open in front of us. You know that moment when the feed disappears, your thumb stops scrolling, and your imagination starts drawing cuts, blocks, and angles? That's what I'm feeling right now. It's not just another rumor. It's one of those signs that changes the tone of the conversation. There is a possibility in the air, real enough to deserve serious analysis, of a tall, elastic shooter with a quick trigger orbiting Golden State's system. And when I say system, it's not a set of plays saved in the book. It's the idea that if the ball breathes, the feet cut at the right time, and the pieces understand the board, the attack sings again. I want to take you down 3 paths at the same time. That of basketball that appears in the video, that of salary mathematics that lives between the lines of the CBA, and that of decision-making that doesn't fit into a table because it affects people, the locker room, and the schedule of a season that charges interest on those who make a mistake. My commitment here is to create a reading that leaves you one step ahead of the bar conversation, with clarity and without magical promises. Let's walk together. I start at the court where the stories are proven. The competitive version of this Golden State arises when spacing is respected, and the second and third actions, those that happen after the first advantage, are automatic. It's let it flow that only works when everyone understands their place on the map. In this landscape, a tall winger who shoots above the defender's contour changes the geometry without asking for permission. You don't need to force a low post. You don't need to pile up dribbles. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just place this threat one step above the point predicted by the scout and watch the defense breathe short. Why does this matter? Because the West is not a group of loose games. It's a marathon of fine-tuning. There are teams that pull you to the free throw line, others that park 2 pivots inside the box and challenge your courage to shoot. There are teams that turn continuity into a weapon and squads that win with the concentrated talent of half a dozen possessions. In all of these scenarios, shooting quality, defensive rebounding, and the ability to reach a mismatch in the fourth quarter without imploding the pace that got you there weigh more than slogans. That's why the figure of a big winger, lethal without the ball and disciplined in the details, coming out of blocks with a tight body, punishing top lock, keeping the threat alive without needing to dribble, stops being a thesis and becomes a working hypothesis. You know the profile: high mechanics, hard to contest release point, reading the passing line on the weak side, and a playoff repertoire that doesn't need 20 shots to impact the score. When a play like this appears on the radar, any coach's imagination gains additional paths to the same play. The short roll becomes cleaner, the help on the opposite side hesitates, and the opposing rotation ages 2 seconds with fear. If we translate this into a name, the conversation will heat up immediately: Michael Porter Jr. Of course, these are not confirmations or inevitabilities. It's an honest exercise in suitability. What it would bring, what it would cost, how it would fit into the 5-series deciding finals. Look at the sequence. Curry moves without the ball. Draymond activates the reading in the middle of the defense. The winger floats 1 step above the slot, and the help marker's decision becomes an expensive coin. If he sticks to the roll, the pass goes through the air for a standing shot. difficult to contest. If it doesn't stick, the tray exists. If they change late, the pitcher's height widens the window. In a big game, windows matter, and Golden State has lived through enough big games to know how many points come out of those cracks. But quadra and mathematics are not, they always sing the same song. And here comes a chapter that few like, but we all need to understand. The second apron is not a footnote. It rewrites the mid-season rules. Above it, adding salaries becomes a maze, taking more money than you send becomes a wall, exceptions disappear. The book forces you to match big numbers with big numbers, and your imagination starts to demand watchmaker precision. There's no such thing as take 3 average contracts and turn them into a star when you live in this area. Either you build the chassis one by one, or you watch the opportunity out the window. So, which avenues remain? One possibility involves a third team, someone with a big, short contract who is willing to serve as a bridge to real compensation, no second rounds of embellishment. You pay for that bridge with a breathable pick and a rotation player, you get the right number, and from there you get to line up the one-for-one that the rule requires. It is elegant, transparent, and expensive. Another approach addresses an always sensitive topic, exchanging one foundational piece for another. Nobody talks about this lightly because culture is not an ornament. It's the way you train, how you talk during breaks, how you get through a bad sequence without the squad getting lost. And there is the third road, that of gradual engineering. Several smaller movements, stopwatch in hand, to drop below the limit at the right time, and then reopen tools. Works on the board. In real life, charge depth, charge minutes, charge health in February. The risk of narrow margins is that all it takes is a sprained ankle for the spreadsheet to collapse. And if we cross the bridge and get to Denver, there is another set of questions. The Nuggets won by being faithful to a structure. Jokic as the center of gravity. Murray occupying the middle of the field with the ability to kill on 2 levels, and the spacing that allows all of this to spill over into clean shots. They are not a team that seeks chaos, value continuity. Giving up Porter for them would only make sense if they received the present and the future without disorganizing the gravity around their pivot. This means that first-round picks need to be real, and a young winger who can play in the playoffs without giving the coach insomnia. It's not simple. And yes, the medical history comes into the room. 3 back surgeries require planning. Load control, travel, ramp-ups, attention on consecutive nights. Availability is not a detail, is the ceiling of the project. Mature negotiations structure protections, not fairy tales. I return to the court, because it is there that we understand why all this would be worth the energy. Imagine the closing minutes with Curry, a second creator capable of ghosting and quick cutting, Draymond as a maestro at the elbow, and Porter occupying the weak side in the right place. Against teams that change everything, the attack becomes a treadmill. It cuts, reverses, cuts again, and with each movement, the defense loses clarity. Against drop formations, the short reading of the roll finds angles, and the presence of a tall shooter on the opposite side discourages that late help that normally saves possession. In defenses obsessed with the top lock, the back opens, the pass flies, the layup appears, all without reinventing the repertoire. And what would the rotation look like? On nights when opponents have very strong wings, you adjust the perimeter, gaining centimeters without losing threat. In games where defensive rebounds become rare currency, the collective work of tagging and closing the rim needs to be non-negotiable. Porter competes high up, uses his reach, but is not a classic rim protector. That's where the team's discipline comes in. The first contact to the body, the second jump on the other side, the help center with time, the guard who returns in the box out. Playoff basketball is a sequence of small allegiances. There is one chapter that every responsible content creator needs to revisit: health and calendar. Golden State is a squad that knows its own miles. A part with planned load handling changes rotation, changes the February design, changes the March requirement. None of this impedes movement. He just calls the person who decides to the table. When we hear that the performance department has already given the okay, it is because internal simulations have done the trick. Without this signal, the conversation tends to continue at the level of hypotheses. And the price? Windows of injury and competitive peak make the Warriors' first-round picks have a particular flavor for those negotiating. The Stars' timeline is not infinite, and this gives link to an asset that, in other contexts, would be just a distant number. That's why, at tables like this, a package with light protection, a young person already on the court, and perhaps a salary that makes the marriage work, usually opens up conversations. The return, on Denver's side, would need to fulfill two desires: preserve space around Jokic and maintain the prospect of a strong squad for the coming years. Nothing less than that, the pencil will move. Now, let me offer you something that goes beyond what the graphics show. In a long series, what decides is not just the play that works. It's the play that works when the referee lets the contact flow, when fatigue shortens the cuts, when nerves make the pass go half an inch higher. It is at this point in the game that a shot from a high release point with a clean setup and space reading becomes oxygen. You don't need 15, you need 2, 3 a night big. Each of these hits silently exchanges tension for control. And control, in May, is worth its weight in gold. There is also the unanswered question, what do you give up to gain this type of advantage? This is where the human factor comes in. Golden State built more than wins, built codes. People who understand people, clear roles, care about identity. Changing part of the living core of the locker room is not pushing a button. It is accepting that any change within the season has a transition cost. This cost is only worth it when the fit offers clarity that goes beyond the longing for those left behind. It is not poetry, it's pragmatism with heart. On the tactical board, I like to design a simple package. Curry starts, dribbles contained, receives hand-to-hand. Draymond positions it at the top of the bottle. The second creator ghosts in the opposite direction, dragging the first aid. Porter moves up a step in the slot, ready for the diagonal pass. The defender on the low side, used to sinking, hesitates. If he helps, 3 points. If it doesn't help, tray. If you arrive late, you're absent. Note that nothing is extraordinary. There are 2 passes, a ghost block, and reading. It's the sequence that ages the opposing coverage, night after night. Against Minnesota, where 2 big men compress the paint, a high-point shooter forces the first line to take an extra step, and 1 step in the face of well-timed cuts is a world. Against Oklahoma City, which thrives on coverage speed and very well-trained scram switch timing, the static but threatening presence on the weak side lengthens the help's mental clock. In each scenario, whoever takes their opponent out of comfort without abandoning their own wins. Defensively, there is no hidden miracle. It is consistency. Porter can stay in front of bigger wingers, uses his wingspan, contests high. In lateral actions with very fast guards, he needs the collective blanket. The first containment in the block, the hand in the pass, the rotation that arrives in one piece, and, when Dre is on the 5, the quintet needs to play as a shell, reducing spaces and protecting the rim through concept and presence. The team does not become another, it becomes a slightly higher version. And, if the attack is efficient, you play with a favorable score, which always helps the defense. Let's talk about time. Mid-season windows have different values than August windows. There are dates that release newly signed players, there are milestones that turn on or off trade tools, and there is that point in the calendar when franchises admit who they are. The moment when teams that believe in the title reinforce certainties, and those who need a breather decide to open windows. If the scenario exists, it is during this part of the year that the conversation breathes. If it doesn't exist, you notice, the market closes and the discourse changes tone. I know that you, who follow closely, want less smoke and more maps. So here's a summary without shortcuts. From the court's point of view, a tall and efficient winger without the ball, with a shot above the challenge, is a multiplier for a system that already thrives on movement. From the CBA's point of view, the operation requires either an expensive bridge contract, viable with real assets, or the courage of a core exchange, or the patience and risk of fine engineering to fall under the limit at the right moment. From a human perspective, only if the coaching, performance, and front office staff agree that the benefit exceeds the cost, technical, financial, and locker room, is it worth the leap. And where do I position the ruler? In practice, if a legitimate 3-team path emerges that delivers the one-for-one chassis without dismantling the surrounding roster, Golden State, has an obligation to listen. If the price demanded is a vital part of the current identity, the reflection is doubled, because there is a difference between sophisticating an attack that already works and changing structural columns to, perhaps, gain a specific advantage. Prudence here is not cowardice, it's respect for the team's recent history and the fact that the playoff doesn't forgive rough edges. Before closing, I want to invite you to think like a technician for a minute. Close your eyes and draw the last minute of a Game 7. Tight score, a request for time. On the drawing board, 3 options. Handoff at speed for the main creator, short roll to attract the second cover, and the diagonal ready for the set shot. The opposing defense knows all this, but needs to choose. If you put someone on the court who turns this third option into a shot, in fact, you create the perfect dilemma. Take the ball out of the point guard's hand and die on the shot, or stay at the shooter and watch the layup. Bad decisions are generated by credible threats. That's what we talk about. And if you ask me the final temperature, I answer like this. On the court, the combination makes sense and expands paths in big matches. In the book, it demands art. In the locker room, ask for tact. There is no simple answer. Yes, there is a movement profile that keeps the team competitive without tearing up what was built. When the market offers the right instrument, with a price proportional to the medical risk and the contract, it is worth taking it to the office with coffee and silence. Until then, the priority is to strengthen margins, responsible size, disciplined rebound, sustainable spacing, and, above all, good health. Small, well-made decisions usually add up to more than the brilliant move that doesn't close the accounts. If you've come this far, it's because you like discussing basketball from the inside. So tell me, what would be the package that, for you, maintains your identity and still opens this window? Does a first round with light protection and a young player ready do the trick? Or would you prefer to channel these assets into a more solid availability bet, even if the technical ceiling is lower? Reasoned opinions take center stage here, and I read everything carefully. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome. Here we translate what is on paper to what appears on the video without magic formulas and with the same demands that the game demands from those on the court. In future content, I'll break down more scenarios, how closing formations vary against heavy switch schemes, how to maximize rebound in lighter quintets, and how small micro-actions, a better timed exit block, an inverted cut, a half-step higher corner occupation, generate the silent points that decide series. My final reading is like this. The technical fit is convincing. The acquisition cost must be surgical, and the sports health plan must be signed by someone who measures loads and looks at data every day. If the market opens exactly this door, the conversation goes up a notch. If you don't open it, discipline continues to be a virtue. What doesn't change is the rule: shooting quality, rebound security, defensive consistency, and role clarity. When this quartet is strong, the team finds season victories and arrives in one piece at what really matters, back in May. Now it's up to you. I want to know what you would put on the table and why. Which scenario convinces you without hurting the cast's backbone? Bring your arguments, numbers, and readings. I'll be back in the next video with the best ideas from the community, the ones that pass the whiteboard sieve and resist the magnifying glass of the big game. Because in the end, that's what moves us. Understanding the board together, one move at a time until the season points out, with facts, not wishes, which path has more truth. If this panorama has sparked your imagination, get ready. The next decisions could redraw the Western Conference board. Here the rule is simple: high-quality pitching, connected defense, and intelligence to win in May. Do you want to follow every adjustment, every reading, and every possible movement that could change the course of the season? So don't scatter now. Click on the Warriors Analysis playlist now and dive into the full breakdowns. Closing quintet variations, tactical impacts against Minnesota, Denver, and OKC, and pitching maps that explain why certain picks are worth more than they seem. Save the playlist in your favorites, activate the bell, and come with me play by play, because here you arrive before the rumors and understand after the numbers. It's time to turn debate into competitive advantage. Press play on Warriors Analysis and let's continue this conversation at the level the game demands.